This season of The Digital Fix is sponsored in part by Uconnect, providing true transparency for brands and agencies in the biddable media space. Visit them today at uconnect.com.
You're listening to The Digital Fix, digital marketing done right. And now, here's your hosts for The Digital Fix, Sean Halter and Stephen Moy.
You are listening to The Digital Fix, the podcast for all things digital marketing, presented by Mio, a signal-driven growth platform for agencies, media teams, and marketers. Turn marketer insights and outreach into action. Visit them today at miointelligence.com. As a reminder, The Digital Fix is hosted by myself and Stephen Moy, both of us with digitalfix.ai, a consultancy helping C-suite executives to bridge the AI gap. Our guests with us today are Nikki Barua, co-founder over at FlipWork, a personal friend of Stephen Moy's. So if you hear the praise coming, just know that they're practically related. And of course, we've got Leighton Welch, CTO over at Tracer. Excited to have both of you as our guests today. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Thrilled to be here.
First things first, we call this first question digital done right. Name another marketer or brand who you think is getting digital right these days and why. Nikki, you get to go first. You cannot pick Stephen Moy.
Well, I don't know. There's no better answer than that.
There's no better answer.
I mean, when you know the guy who's always been at the forefront, can you really pick another answer?
He's always
that's
there.
That's sort of a trick question.
So I should just say that outside of Stephen Moy, who would you pick and why?
I don't know. Do you have a brother, Stephen?
He does.
I do, but they don't look like me. They look like us. Like Kendrick Lamar, they're not like us. Yes.
That's true.
Yeah.
Nikki,
Well, look, right now, more than just thinking about the digital transformation piece, AI is changing things so fast that the most common thing that we're seeing is just everyone trying to catch their breath, trying not to spin in circles and feeling overwhelmed with everything that's happening and just taking the right steps forward. So to me, the ones that I'm seeing do it right are the ones that are very clear about their business priorities rather than the shiny object syndrome.
Even the prompts are stressed these days. I was on chat this morning asking about what's going on with Sora, and he was like, hey, here's what's going on. It's a fantastic platform. I was like, no. It's going away. It was like, hold on. And then it came back like, oh, you're right. So everybody's stressed. The information is coming so fast. Leighton, you're over there, chief technical officer, a co-builder of this thing called Tracer. Who are you going to pick? Who's your digital pick of the week?
I'll answer this from a slightly different lens as I'm, on the technology side, not on the marketing side, even though I've built a lot of, marketing adjacent technology. And so I was at a hackathon earlier this week for a company that was trying to figure out halo impact of their influencer marketing on their sales. They spend a lot of money there. They feel like it is having a big impact and they're having a lot of trouble measuring it. There were a ton of really smart people in the room building all kinds of things with new tech. They were building, agents for process automation. They were setting up chatbots to answer questions. They were building beautiful dashboards, and all of that was fine. But the thing that was like really the key takeaway from that conference was when they pulled the rug back, the actual influencer data that, they were building all of these models on top of were coming from a handful of analysts that were logging in every week to these accounts and inputting that data by hand into a spreadsheet, schedule sending it to Snowflake, right? And all of these cool downstream things were built on top of that foundation. And so I think similar to what Nikki said, that the people that are able to take a step back and really focus on those data foundations back to basics are going to be in a much better position, because there's a lot you can do today. In 3 months, in 3 years, it's going to be even crazier. And so it's going to be that much more important to make sure that you have that stable base.
Stephen's going to get the next question, but before I let him talk, because we know he'll take the rest of the podcast if we let him. Leighton, you hit on two things that I just want us to kind of rethink of a little bit. You talked about this hackathon thing. For some of us that are, I don't want to say fairly new to the space, we've been doing this podcast for 4 years. Stephen's been in this even longer than I have. I finally had that aha moment where I was like, okay, I can't retire. I'm not personally so rich that I don't have to work. And so I better learn this space. And that really has been a drinking from the trough for the last 6, 7, 8 months. But how does a hackathon come together? Who gets the invite? And how do you decide who gets the juice from everybody in the room?
A couple pieces to that. I think this one came together from a brand that we work with indirectly who wanted to see, okay, let's get together our agency partners, let's get together all the technology teams internally. They brought in AWS, who they work with. They brought in Snowflake, who they work with, and they brought in some perspective technologies as well. And the way that they organized it, which I thought they did a great job, was, hey, here's the business problem that we have. Let's try to reverse engineer how we can, jumpstart getting these outputs in the next 48 hours, right? Let's work backwards from what we want. I think AI has empowered the ability to create last mile analytics really quickly. It's very easy to build dashboards to get insights from data. So that part was a success. And I think the more meaningful conversations, like I just mentioned, were, where is all this data coming from? What is the process? How do we scale it? How do we go to production? And I think that tends to be the harder part, but it was a lot of people hands on keyboards from every department, from the business side to engineering.
Fascinating.
One thing I'll add to that that we've seen that is so powerful about that hackathon type of approach is it's building the organizational muscle and the cultural agility that if transformation is happening outside in, right, the consultants come in and they drive all the change and they put in all the tools and all of that, your people aren't developing the right mindset and feeling the safe space to experiment and bring their ideas to life. Because what AI has really done is it's taken away the challenge, the constraint of execution. And now the space between your idea and bringing it to life is really small. And so, but you still have to encourage that, and adopting that kind of approach within a company is super powerful.
The gas still matters, though. That's one of the things you said, Leighton. If people are still inputting information by hand, and that's wrong, you can have all the beautiful dashboards, you can have all the insights. I think that's some of the part that the C-suite misses, though, sometimes, is they want the dashboard and they want the other parts, but they don't realize that the actual gas they're putting in the engine is maybe not the right gas. Stephen, the rest of the podcast is yours. Take it away.
No, it's not true. I think I want to piggyback on. I have my own opinion. I wanted the guest talk about why Disney actually not working on OpenAI on the video generation. And I'm curious about, Nikki, what's your take? Is it really like what they stated, or there's other reason to it? Please.
I think it's the enterprise play that really focusing down on that, right? Because what Anthropic did with their business model actually makes it a far stronger proposition. I mean, you and I have spent our entire lives in enterprise, right? It's hard to get in, but once you're there, now that's the kind of like customer retention that B2C models just don't have. And when you're burning through your capital that fast, you need more resilient client pipelines than that. And I think narrowing focus, but also that space is evolving so much. I mean, there's only so many things you can do. And at some point, even the investor appetite, when they start comparing all these research labs and start looking at who's getting better returns, is going to start to play out.
No, I think you're spot on, because earlier, a couple episodes ago, after CES, I was talking about we're witnessing more narrow AI innovation, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's solve a specific problem. I think when OpenAI spread that why and that theme, maybe maybe they should pick a lane, right?
Well, I think they had some early advantages of just being first to launch AI and have the story of getting 100 million users that fast. I mean, that's a compelling story that's great, but it's not the long-term success story. And when you really look at applying AI to solve complex problems, they sit at the enterprise level. Any industry vertical, the most complex problems sit there, and that's where the best use cases are. That's where the greatest return exist, not at the consumer level.
Yeah, exactly. Because like to strike two, right? E-commerce, they decide not to do shopping cart, and now like not video. How about you, Leighton? What do you think? Real reason, is it because of lack of focus, or just you cannot be jack of all trade? The usual suspect. Please.
I mean, what I've consumed on the Sora front specifically was just it was economics, right? Like the cost of producing that was too high relative to what they were making. So like, yeah, there's opportunity costs and what should we build and focus and all of those things. But ultimately, and again, this is just from what I've read publicly, it just didn't seem like the math worked out for that type of product. And so they wanted to reinvest those resources in things that are going to be able to generate greater revenue. And I think you guys touched on a good piece where OpenAI is, very aware that their on the opposite end of Anthropic in terms of the splits on consumer to enterprise. And so the math works out very differently for $20 a month of a consumer app versus, the API usage for development and coding. And you've seen OpenAI jump in there with Codex and huge investments on that engineering side.
It's
not
not
the attrition. I mean, like, think about what's it going to take for a consumer to just switch from ChatGPT to Claude? Nothing. So your customer retention, the barriers, just not there. You don't have a moat, really.
Is there a government layer into this at all? Not to pick political parties, but is there a government layer to this where, because Anthropic basically kind of said not this, and OpenAI seemed to kind of say we'll take that business, that also has changed some of this dynamics? Because to the point, those government contracts are ginormous contracts. You need 20 million of me in order to equal that same amount of money. Is that another element that's maybe pushing OpenAI to start cutting ties already with things like SOAR that just don't fit?
Well, actually, the enterprise revenue stream is far bigger than the government contract part. I think just at least the U.S. federal sector part, if I recall correctly, is like around 600 million or so, whereas the enterprise part runs into multiple billions. So I don't know that the government part necessarily drove that, but you start to see how resilient Anthropic's pipeline is, that they're holding on. And one of the other things that we've also found in working with various industry verticals, there's a level of tacit knowledge that is so essential that you can't, without going deep into an industry, you can't have a one-size-fits-all solution. Yeah. So either you're just a generic sort of LLM, and then there's last mile technologies built on top of that for industry verticals like legal or hospitality or financial services, or your own model kind of caters to deep problems in those verticals. And that's a very different proposition from anything with consumer.
All right, let's decouple from AI for a moment. This next question is called Hey, That's Me. We're going to let you guys talk 60 seconds about who you are, what you do, and why you do it. It's hard to avoid AI in these podcasts as the season's gone on. It's gotten harder and harder because it just wraps itself around so much these days. But Nikki, in 60 seconds or less, tell everybody who you are, what you do outside of being a Steven fan. Tell us who you are.
Friend of Steven's. That's it.
FOS.
But truly, the through line of my entire story has been all about reinvention. In fact, like my moniker is Da Vinci of disruption. Every time there's been a disruption, my focus has been helping people and organizations adapt to that change and reinvent for the future. And my company FlipWork is dedicated to that mission and making sure that we close the divide where technology is racing ahead and humans are getting left behind.
Leighton, tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and why you built Tracer.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm Leighton. I'm the CTO at Tracer, so I oversee the product and the engineering orgs. My background is in computer science. I have always been interested in data and process automation and kind of got into these marketing applications totally fortuitously and a little bit randomly, where quick story, I guess, is where I met the other co-founder and CEO of Tracer. I had a friend who I grew up with, went to high school with, who worked for him many years ago. He was running a global ad campaign for a large marketer during the Olympics and waking up every morning at 5 a.m. to generate reporting. He called me on a Friday and said, "Hey, can you come in and automate this? I don't want to do this anymore." I came in, and that was sort of my first aha of just like, there's a huge white space here between the quantity of dollars and the quality of software tracking those dollars. And, we started automating those types of workflows. And what I've realized and what Tracer does today is the process of going from disparate data to answer is the same, regardless of the business question that you're asking. And so Tracer has really become about how do we abstract those steps and productize them so that it's easier for everybody. And AI is, I know we're moving away from that, but has really been a jumpstart for that because, clean data is the foundation for all those types of tools. So
I mean, we can keep talking about it. We'll talk about it. Steven,
I'm going to go back in. Well, it's Nikki and many people, even Sean, knows that I'm out every night because I'm not a good cook. I have an air fryer. But people ask me, so I eat out every night. So I went to a lot of social events, including a lot of mixer with startup companies. Like everybody's AI now, right? So many AI. So one thing is very interesting to me, and because that topic came up, many brands and agency and also startup talk about, is talk about synthetic customer insight focus group. Historically, right? Like Leighton talk about the cleanliness of the data. When we were at back in the days with Sapient, we look at customer insight, the qualitative, right? Like interview people, observe
Ethnographic
people,
research and all
yeah,
that.
ethnographic. And then you have the quantitative, right? That's research all based on data. Now you have a brand new synthetic panel or customer group you can put together. And I see benefit, but also I see a lot of people telling me, no, that's a danger zone getting in. But I see a more real time, constantly getting data from the LLM. So what's your take? I mean, curious about Nikki, right? Like you got synthetic human now coming in to the world.
Well, I'll share a personal thing that when I first came across it, what popped up for me was a little bit of felt like I was betraying my past. I mean, given the environment in which we grew up and how we used to do work, it was a real craft, and it was, there was such deep work of studying human behavior and research and all of that to like kind of go towards synthetic research felt a little bit like a betrayal. But the more looking into it, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this company, Panoply.
Can you say it one more time, Nikki? What's it called?
Panoply, PANOPLAI.
Okay.
And they focus on AI-backed market research, and it's basically used by CMOs, and but they do a lot of synthetic user panels and all of that. And one of the white papers that came out was really interesting. What they found was that it was close to 98% similar to real humans, except they could do this at scale. But there's some guardrails around that. What, very much like what you were saying early, Sean, was garbage in, garbage out type of thing. So how you design that research is very critical in order to ensure that you get the right results. And there's certain key elements that they pointed out. But overall, when designed correctly, 98% close to that. Now think about the power of that for any brand, for any marketer to be able to do that at scale, and the cost effectiveness, the very thing that used to take months and was so expensive is now accessible in a whole different way.
No, I totally agree. We got one of the company advising, so I want to go to Leighton, but you are right. Very timely, easy and constantly almost real time getting feedback, right? Kind of testing a new product, campaign or whatever. But funny enough, like we built LLM and this is little stereotype, but let me give you an example. We said, well, looking for Asian American, like to play golf, wear Rolex, living in Fort Lee area. You know what they pick up? Majority my Korean friends and colleagues, David Park, right? and build that profile a little, almost to the point, so stereotyped to a point. I wonder, I want comment from, Leighton, your thought about synthetic panel, and then go back to Nikki, because it's crazy the what we're talking about. So Leighton first.
So I don't have a ton to add from what Nikki said on that standpoint. I think it's getting better and better. Like we see surveys all the time where like people are being given access to things like, writing that was generated by actual writers versus, by AI and even people who are in the industry. And I think this was like an article in the journal recently where like they struggle to tell the difference between the two. So like, I think things are going to get better and better over time. And like, we're in the early innings. And for me, more on, the human versus AI component, not just, for synthetic data, but in terms of like the way that we think about it internally in Tracer is just really being intentional about what workflows should be driven by humans versus which workflows should be driven by AI. And so like for me, a lot of the time, execution is now an AI task and strategy, right, is still a human task. And so like as a software developer, very similarly, if I have a problem right now, where I'm spending the majority of my time is what is the problem I need to solve? Why do I need to solve it? How do I need to solve it? Break it into the smallest kind of discrete units and then let AI execute on those things. And so I think the way that we're thinking about this holistically is that the best workflows are going to be a combination of those things where it's both AI and human together.
We've got with us Nikki Barua, co-founder over at FlipWork, Leighton Welch, CTO over at Tracer. I'm going to ask the next question, then Stephen, I'll let you jump in. We'll see which one of us gets the last one today. We'll find out from there. But Leighton, I'm going to stick with you for just a second, especially with what you guys are doing over at Tracer specifically, because you've got different kinds of clients in some ways, right? They're not all agencies. They're not all necessarily media. It's a lot of different people. But when you're talking to that C-suite, for those of us that are now in AI, all day, all the time, where we have to take breaks sometimes from fighting with Claude and step up and get some air. There's definitely some people that are in the room sometimes that are kind of shaking their head, but you also can tell they have absolutely almost no idea what you're saying. And so how do you navigate that? How do you be the smartest person in the room and yet the person who also can help bridge that gap between those that maybe should know but don't know? How do those conversations go? I'm going to start with you first, Leighton, and then Nikki, I'd love your opinion as well.
It's showing people, right? And it's being hands-on and demonstrating like this is a workflow where, this is what I was doing before and this is what I'm doing now and this is why it's valuable. And, a lot of the times the disbelief comes from either I haven't used this before, I tried something 6 months ago that now works very differently than today. Maybe there's a fear component of like, this is going to displace X, Y, and Z. And so I think really just like unpackaging where that doubt is coming from and using tangible examples is what I found to be most effective, because a lot of the times the doubt is kind of abstract versus the demonstration is far more tangible.
Is the fear real, Nikki?
So we address this from a deep diagnostic standpoint. FlipWork has a proprietary diagnostic called Flip Factor that measures individual behavior, mindset, readiness, all of that. And so you can get that result at an individual level, team level, and a company level. And here's what we've discovered through all of that data, and it's super fascinating. The fear isn't about fearing AI as a technology or a tool. The fear is, who am I in this world of AI? The fear is about identity, my own identity. This is what I've done for the last 10, 20, 30 years of my career. This is what gives me power, status, worth, value. When that is shaken at its core and suddenly I'm at risk of becoming irrelevant and replaceable, who am I? That identity is the biggest threat and the number one thing we found across industries, across career stages, across everything. And so that is not a technical problem. That's a human transformation problem.
Apparently you've been talking to my therapist, Nikki. And so that answer hurt. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. It hurt. It touched deep. Stephen, take us somewhere, please, before I start crying.
No, it's true, right? I do a lot of guest lecturing from the university point of view. A lot of the younger scholars or students coming into the number one question is, am I out of the job? How you position, especially from the marketing? And it's interesting. I told them, guys, we've seen it enough, right? We're old enough, like I'm 105C 10 innovation cycle from like ATM to like, right, internet, e-commerce coming along. I said, never change it. But like there are rapid opportunity to Nikki's point. You need to quickly differentiate yourself outside of what the AI are capable of doing and what they're good at. I still don't believe AI can do understand 7 scenes, right? How you would describe jealousy in LLM, like, like better hair, I don't know. Hopefully we won't see it until I pass away or whatsoever. But like, do you really think AI would replace, the creativity? I always advocating any emotional connection is better than functional connection, right? I think AI is very good at functional, like telling you how big my refrigerator better than, LG versus Samsung. Can you really tell me I should buy a new refrigerator? So I'm curious. Let's start with Nikki and then Leighton. Like AI and creativity and emotional, is that ever going to happen in the next 18 months?
Absolutely not, and certainly never. I think what makes humans so incredibly powerful is our gift of creativity and imagination and our compassion and wisdom and judgment, all of those innately human qualities that makes us irreplaceable in that sense. But I think the real opportunity is how to use AI and co-evolve with AI and amplify what makes you uniquely human. That's the real power, right? I call it people squared, right? When people become people squared, is the human machine collaboration of lead with your humanity, but scale it with technology. And that's where you can create real impact. But if you do it the wrong way, where you're outsourcing the things by pushing a button and thinking that's, let it do my writing and creative thinking and problem solving, that's just sheer laziness. And you're going to degrade to mediocrity rather than standing out. And I think originality is the new scarcity. So to me, I think it's an incredibly powerful time for original creative thinkers to stand out.
I'm also a computer scientist, a 10-year software engineer, so
What
I can
are you,
code. I didn't tell a lot of people.
What aren't you?
So-
What are you not? Let's just make sure we're to the part.
This is an overachiever from a Chinese heritage, but like Leighton, you know how to code, you understand data.
And truly humble.
Of course.
Oh, no. Now I'm getting to a point I don't give a shit. So Leighton, you know the computer science part, right? Will we ever achieve that? At that level, AI understand human emotion and creativity.
No, I think it's just shifting the roles and responsibilities, right? It goes back to what I was talking about before in terms of like the strategy versus execution. And it's not just a coding thing. That's true in every exercise, right? Like if your job is to model a potential investment, right? Like maybe AI can now, fill out the spreadsheet, make it look beautiful, do the modeling, but the thesis of what we are investing in is still coming from some sort of strategic thinking. And I think that's the divergence that isn't really going away. You're moving further away from the metal, which is good because inputting data into that spreadsheet or doing that model is not actually creating any value for humanity, right? It's a means to an end to invest. The investment is to, give capital to a company so that the company can build something so that what they build actually matters. And so we're moving closer to that end state of humans doing the things that actually provide value rather than 7 derivatives away because it needs to happen for this thing to happen, for this thing to happen, for something that matters.
I'm an optimist about this. Honestly, I feel like this is ending the industrial age and what it turned human beings into human doings. It's taking away the drudgery so we can elevate to higher value thinking and high quality work.
Nikki is squeezing in that last hashtag. What you said, going from where to where, from learnings. What did you just say?
Human beings to human doings is what the industrial age made us, and the AI age is turning human doings into human beings.
That's very fair. Listen, we're going to bring it home with this. We're going to talk about some humans for a moment here. This last question is called Key to My Heart. And basically, you get to pick a keynote speaker for an upcoming event like Possible, which for any of you who are listening to this, that will be at Possible. Make sure you look out for us. I will be there for sure. Steven may or may not be there. You never know with him. So you can pick anybody that you want, alive, no longer with us. Nikki, who would you pick and why?
So when I think about where we are today as society, the most important quality is about curiosity and courage, because everything is uncertain and unknown. And when I think about the person who stands out and has always represented those qualities in my life, it's my mom. And she's no longer with us. I would love to hear her, lead people through the most tumultuous time and inspire them to reinvent themselves.
Leighton, now you're stuck.
I'm not following that. So I think
how do you fall into that trap?
let's have Nikki's mom speak. So I haven't met her. I'm looking forward to hearing that. And if you can pull that off, we're all going to be very rich too. So I think it's a win-win.
It is. It is what it is, right? We're not following that one. No. I'm going to say Stephen Moy. Just at least get that out there and Leighton the room for just a moment. Leighton the room for just a moment. There you go. Listen, last word. Speaking of Stephen Moy, the last word is yours, Stephen Moy. Tell us, what do we need to know this week to get our digital fix in?
Well, I think it's human doing. I really appreciate that, last comment. People, you're not going to be replaced if you continue to create value. And that's what the imagination, the curiosity, I know your old company used to call curious. And also, our constantly conquesting. I mean, we grew up, our human nature like to conquest. So don't forget that. I think human doing is the perfect.
Human doings. I love it. Listen, on behalf of myself, Stephen Moy, we want to thank you, Nikki, and you, Leighton, for joining us on this episode of The Digital Fix. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for listening to The Digital Fix, digital marketing done right. This season is presented by Mio Marketplace. Mio, the marketer's matchmaker. If you're a brand marketer or an agency, media, or platform that works with them, Mio is a marketplace built just for you. Visit them at miomarketplace.com. And by Moy & Halter, a strategic consultancy. If you're struggling with getting your creative and content to efficiently work with your media strategy, we help solve for that, typically in 30 days or less. Reach out for a free consultation today at moyandhalter.com.